If you could introduce yourself.
I'm Konna, short for Konstantina. I'm from Greece. I've been living with type 1 diabetes for 14 years now. I'm a recently graduated medical doctor.
Medical doctor, person living with diabetes. Yeah, we need all this. We need people living with diabetes to join in the medical field. Describe a little bit how diabetes affected you since you got diagnosed.
There's not a single aspect of my life that has not been affected by diabetes. Personal life, professional life, my daily life, all my life has been affected, not only in a negative way, I would say. Of course, there are some bad aspects and some difficult and dark times with diabetes, but to get you to know yourself at a young age to a certain depth gives you an opportunity to deal better with some life circumstances, regardless if they are related to diabetes or not. It's both a present and a curse for me, living with diabetes. First of all, diabetes is a 24/7 hour paid job. And the struggle is to find the balance between adapting diabetes to your life or adapting your life to your diabetes needs. That's the balance I always try to find. I sometimes manage it, sometimes I fail.
It's a 24/7 thing, a job that you don't get paid for. You have to do it properly. I know it's complicated. Now that you're a digital advocate with T1 International and you've written articles with T1 International, sort of like know the global issues with in terms of diabetes. Yes, we are still researching, trying to get to know everything that is going on around the world with regards to people living with diabetes. What would you wish should be changed to help people living with diabetes to cope with this chronic illness?
It's a great question. When I go to medical conferences or even I read articles or see posts online, there are so many differences around the globe for people living with diabetes. For example, if you live to a country, you may have not access to insulin. We cannot talk about education or anything if you don't have your medical equipment. You don't have access to your medical equipment. First of all, I would say accessibility, the key change that has to be made. And it's funny that we're still battling for it. Once you have access, you have your equipment, you have the opportunity to have treatment, to see doctors, but to start working on accepting it has so many benefits for the patient. Then education plays a key role in diabetes management. Peer group, first of all, accessibility. Second of all, acceptance, and then education, not only from healthcare professionals, but also from peer groups.
I believe with our involvement in the diabetes community, or should I say, diabetes online community, which is broad, it's huge. There's so many things to learn, to appreciate. We learn to appreciate the little things that we have. Some communities are super empowered, some are disempowered. With regards to how the diabetes is understood around the world, if you could briefly explain to us, or maybe the audience that do not know this, how are you going to help change that narrative so that people would understand diabetes?
I think awareness is very important because also there is a misconception between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And most people have in mind type 2 diabetes. And when people say that they are diabetic, they believe that by default, they are type 2 diabetic. Type 1 diabetic life is much more, I could say, difficult and different. People do not understand this. Awareness is very important, not only for non-diabetic people, but also for diabetic people. Seeing someone who speaks openly about the disease and the daily life and our needs, our concerns, makes people who are less comfortable with the disease or feel lonely. I think it's a huge to raise awareness about diabetes. In the medical field, the biggest issue is the empathy. With diabetes, we have to deal a lot with numbers. Now, with new technologies, we have to deal with percentages, time in ranges and stuff. But this is a part of the patient's life. It's not the whole image. I keep saying that we may have a patient that has perfect blood sugars, perfect blood results, maybe suffering from depression or diabetes burnout. Recently, we created with T1 International a survey which showed that like 75% of people who have experienced diabetes burnout weren't feeling comfortable to talk about it to a doctor. That's a great issue. It's like not seeing the root of a problem and treating only the summit of the mountain.
We are not only focusing on people that are living with diabetes. I think about only 10% of the world are people living with diabetes. And then the 90%, they're also our focus group. We need to educate them so that they know. So I think we have laid the foundation, which is great. I would like you to share with the audience, and because people are going to see your face on this podcast, hosting so many apps. So if you could share with us your aspirations as part of the host for the Diabetic Mogul Podcast, what's your promise to the people that are going to come on over to you?
First of all, I would like to thank you so much. It's a great honor to be part of this podcast. I'm beyond happy for that. As I said before, first of all, is awareness. Awareness is key. In this podcast, we will try to create a safe space, an inclusive environment to hear different perspectives and thoughts about diabetes, whether it's from medical professionals, diabetics, or people who have worked in the diabetes field. Every part of diabetes, whether it's psychological, where is daily routine, clinical. Our aim is diabetes is different from person to person. The way that each person sees and manages diabetes differs. So that's what we'll try to cover and talk about.
Wonderful, incredible, great to have you. And thank you so much for expressing interest to be part of this podcast. And of course, there are times when you're feeling drained, you always have to produce something. People are always expect. I believe we are stronger together, coming up together to create the change that we need. The shifts we've been talking about, which is great because people need this. We're going to be hosting caregivers, people living with diabetes, and also researchers. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast and with your contributions, everything that we're going to be creating. Yes, so people may know, I will not only be the voice that will be speaking. So it's going to be me and Konna. Thank you so much, Konna. So let's see where the future will take us and what we're going to create.
Yeah,
greater impact in this world.
looking forward.
Yes, it's needed. Yes.